guys, welcome to this YouTube channel. Today we are going to be talking about what it means to be a high valued employer. An employer that is kind of valued, an employer that people depend on in the organization, an employer that kind of gets all the promotion, all the recognition, whenever there is accolades, right? You get that, and if it translates into promotions, you are likely to get that, right? And the secret is most times not working hard. You've noticed it's also not the people that work hard the most that get all the promotion. Most times it's the people that are loudest, right? The people that are out there, like everybody's seeing, right? How to become that, especially if you are not if you are not extroverted, right? If you are not loud, if you are not always sharing, if you are not always everywhere, how you can still become a high valued employer, and how you can be considered for promotions or for recognitions in your organization. So I'm going to be sharing 5 key things, and I wrote them down so that I wouldn't forget that. The first thing I was going to say is to how to become a high valued employer is to master your core role. For every good organization, there's a reason why you were there. Like, there's a reason why they employed you. There's a reason why they're paying your salary. You also need to figure that out. And most times it deviates from what's in your job description. They could employ you and say you're a brand and communication strategist, and you've seen what your JD is, manage the brand, marketing. But if you have spent like a month in the company, you understand that there's a challenge, there's a real issue why they got you there. And most times, companies and HR, most times it's not clearly articulated. It might be in your job description, but it's not clearly articulated there. I think that's one thing you should spend the first few months you are in the company articulating. And if you have been in your company for a very long period of time and you've been there and you've been neglected for promotions, you've not been recognized for your work, I think that's where you should pause and try to figure out what is the core thing, what's the core challenge, what's the core issue, why I was employed in this organization, what was that problem, what was that problem why I was employed. And there's also, don't try to ask people that, try to find out. You can ask people, right? Depending on who your colleagues are, they might frame the problem differently, and that will kind of confuse you. It also depends, right? But if you have a manager, you can actually also ask. If you have good managers, they might be able to share. But this is something that you need to observe by yourself, because also sometimes what people say the problem is not exactly what the problem is, right? So number one, try to figure out what are the core things. What's the core thing that problem that this company was trying to solve, why they employed you. 2, try to master what that is. Try to master what that is, even beyond what is expected of you. If you are gotten there because maybe, let me give you an instance. For example, auditors came to the company. They audited the last financial statement. They saw that people were misusing, not that they might necessarily be doing fraud, but like they were not retiring on time. They were misusing funds. They were mislabeling things. Then they just brought you as an internal auditor, right? They would just say, it's part of our process to get an internal auditor. We're scaling now, so we want to get an internal auditor. They wouldn't necessarily tell you that it's because of issues in the financial statement. But going through the conversations and the meetings, you might be able to hear some of those things, and you pick that out, right? What you will now do, or what I will now do, is, okay, if the issue is really how people implemented processes around the expenses, for an example, this is that as an example, what's the way I can optimize this? One thing I've also seen, if you are a new employer, is people try to come with their external things and project on the organizations, and most times, people are resistant to change. They are going to resist you, and you are not going to, if you can't beat them, join them. You are not going to revert back to what was done in the organization. Right? So if you're a new employer, and this also applies if you're an old person, if you're a new employer, if you figure out what your core role is, figure out a way to solve it, figure out a way to solve for that issue, right? It might not be something you solve once, it can also be something you scale out how to solve, right? And you slowly get people to buy into solving that issue. Try to be that after like a few months of you being in that organization, or now that you have watched this video, after a few months, people can see that issue is no longer there. right? That issue has been solved for, or they can, without you telling them, they can tell. And also don't come out and say, I'm trying to solve this issue, give me your thoughts and opinion, or this is the way I think it should be gone about. You have to be tactful in terms of solving that issue. You want to be a high-valued employer, not by saying you are a high-valued employer, but by people knowing that you're a high-valued employer without you saying it. You don't need to say it, right? So that's one thing I think. You have to master what your core role is. You figure out what the core issue is and you solve for it. It might not be one-time solving. It can be a scaled-out solving. For example, the issue I was using about expense retirement. One way to do it is, okay, is there another approach that I can bring towards solving this thing? Can I walk people through how to solve it? Can I do a mini training? Can I explain the pathway to doing this? Not also coming and saying, please, everybody should start using these templates. People are going to revert and revolt back to you and things like that, right? You want to be when it comes to business, there's the thing about like being respected. When it comes to working in a workplace, there's the thing about being a team player, being someone that not necessarily that people like, but someone that is part of a team, right? So you shouldn't also do things that people will mount resistance towards you. Remember, you have a goal to become a high-valued employer, right? So master that thing, be a core expert in that area. It's your core attention now. So be an expert in that area. Be the first person that people will think about when it comes to this. There might be a lot of people in the organization, but be known for one thing. Be known for this. Be known for something, right? And that is your core area. Don't be known for other things that is beyond your core area. You can be known for all those other things, but like be that person that when it comes to this, your people in your organization will likely go to you for that core problem, and you do that intentionally, right? Sharing ideas, sharing ways to solve that core problem that you know the company has. Remember, especially this is easier to do if you're a new employer, and if you're also an old employer, you can also find ways to implement this, right? Point 2 is solve high impact problems. I think this has been said, this applies in business and applies in workspace, but it also depends on like the type of organization you are working in. You might be working in a low level, there are other people above you, right? And most times if you have an idea, you're likely to present to them, and they're likely to steal your idea and present to the board management. And yes, you saw the high impact problem, but you might not get the accolades for it. There's that one. But solving high impact problem here, I mean, it's from your core point, right? If you are solving problems that are not tied to your central role within the organization, you will look like someone that's looking for trouble. You will look like someone that's looking for problem. And sometimes your advice, no matter how good it is, it will be unsolicited. That's true. And then people will label that you are looking for something. People will sense what you're trying to do, right? The way to become a high-valued employer is to be tactful about your approach, but to achieve your goal, right? So solve high impact problem, but solve it from a central focus of, it's also how you frame your core position. It's also how you frame that problem that, your organization has brought you to solve. So identify issues around your core area of expertise, your core central problem you're solving for the organization. Solve them. Explain how it contributes to the overall organization, right? That's also how you frame it. An expense, I'm not sure I'm using accountant. Research, business development. You can frame that into how that if we re-strategize, now that I'm part of the business development team, we're doing this, we're doing that. How if we solve this problem, it can contribute 10 billion naira to the company. You are the one that framed it. Nobody framed it. That's a high impact problem. It's not you going to try to tell them to change leadership. It's not you going to try to tell them to find a finance guy that he's not getting the accounting right. It's you in your business development space solving that problem, but framing it as a high impact problem, right? So listen to complaints, frustrations around this your department, around this your central core idea, and try to solve for it, right? Number 3, take initiative. When you listen to, like I mentioned, if you're newly joining a company and someone has shared about an idea, something around what your department, and has shared the issues they have, try to take initiative to solve it. After the meeting, you say, I have 3 ideas on how to go about this. Which one do you think is easier for us to start with working? And Let people intentionally say they are trying to solve that issue that they raise. And that's the thing with organizations, and that's how it's kind of different from business. If you're an organization and people see that you genuinely, when they share about their frustration with work, as in relation to you, that you genuinely have advice on how to make it better, right? They'll perceive it differently, right? So they will also see you as a value add. They will see what you bring. It showcases leadership, it showcases ownership. There are people that when you tell them how your frustrations, they try to tell you an additional work you will do, right? To solve your own problem. Those who are not perceived as high valued employers. So try to take responsibility when it has to do with the core area of your expertise. Let me use an example. I'm in the research team in my organization. If there's an issue with research, there's a question that we need to solve for, right? I'm not going to come and tell you to so after that meeting, we're like, okay, we can't invest in this, for an example, because we don't have evidence to prove that, this is a place to invest in, and this place, investing in this place will bring traction to the organization. I'm not going to come after the meeting and tell you, find me the papers, find me people that have talked about these ideas. I've shared my frustration that you are finding resistance investing in an idea because you don't have proof about it. What I've listened to that, what I should do is to take ownership and say, okay, as a research person, I'm going to go and find out more about this idea. I'm going to find out more about the topic of interest that you are talking about in the meeting. Then probably I'll come back to you and say, yes, you were mentioning your frustration in this and this. I have seen 10 papers or people that have published on this. People have invested in this. This is what happened. Do you think it resolves your the resistance you're having, or do you think we need to do a new research? You will say, oh, this helps, but maybe I think we need to do a more current research, right? I'm coming to you with solution. I've taken initiative. That's one. I've taken ownership, and that's the thing with workplace. People don't take initiative. They like pushing things to people. They like pushing people to do work. They never do the work themselves. They are trying to push their work onto somebody. After the meeting, instead of me to go and find out based on what you have shared, to find solution, I'm coming to come and ask you, let's do another meeting so I will understand your idea better. Come with a solution and we can pivot from if the solution works or if it doesn't work, right? So that's number 3 way on how to be a high valued employer. You've listened, try to offer something, and from the solution, like, does this solve it, or do we need additional information? People after the meeting will come and say, let's have another meeting to think about this, my frustration, for me to share more about my frustration. That doesn't make you a high valued employer. You will not say, hey, you can go online and find. They will add more work to what you are doing already. Number 3 way is communicate like a number 4. This is number 4. Communicate like a pro. Honestly, no matter where you're working and no matter what level you are in, and this is a challenge most of us have, and this is a challenge I am working through. I'm taking courses on it. Communication. There are different ways to communicate, and most times there are different ways to communicate. There are 2 types of I would say there are 2 types of communications, kind of from my point of view. There are people who don't have sufficient information to address the point. But some people have too many information. This is where I fall into, right? So I'm trying to always get frameworks to communicate my information. So don't be on the other side. It's better that you have too much information and you are synthesizing it. Your issue is just synthesize it, right, into the right way that the person can use it, than you just don't have anything at all, right? So communicate like a pro. Communication is a superpower when it comes to the workplace. High valued employers, if you look at your organization, even the people that you think that they are very loud, that's why they get all the things, is because they communicate well. Someone is going to move a paper from here to here. They will the way they will write the email, even you are like wondering, it's not just paper you moved, right? So communicate, right? Communicate like a pro. I think that this is not a communication course, but I think that for communication, there are a couple of things you should do. Right? Indicate the problem, the solution, a synthesis. So what? Right? This is the issue. Right? This is how we solve the issue. So what? And then the implication of solving this problem. Because sometimes when you have said what you have done, people kind of when people do things, they magnify the extent of the work they've done. But when other people are doing it, they kind of minimize, they kind of say, let's say an example, moving a paper from here to here. If it's you that moved it, they'll be like, you just moved paper. But if they're the ones that moved it, they will account for the effort. And that's the thing with communication. People don't see, people don't account for the effort you put into doing the work. But if they did the work, they would account for that. They would share how they moved it and how it took them the effort. But you just say, I moved paper from here to here, right? But because they can't see the effort you took into doing that thing, they wouldn't value that work you're explaining. They won't value that thing you're explaining, right? So try to state the problem, the solution. The synthesis is like, so what? And then the implication. That because if you solve this thing, it's going to do this for the company, it's going to do this for the investors, it's going to do this for, and most of that's what's missing in the communications. And you don't have to write it elaborately, you can put it in one single line, so it drives home your point, right? Communicate like a pro. Number 5 is be the go-to person. I think this is kind of one of my core values, and this is something I've worked on this year. Be a dependable person. You can have all the information, and I've seen how it has played in my workplace. You can have all the information about an idea, but if people know that when you schedule a meeting you wouldn't be there, or they give you something, help me and do this, or you voluntarily take up work to do, you are not dependable. When you say 1 p.m, it's not your 1 p.m. when you are, because that's the thing about workplace, it's like a team, right? Every team, you have to play your part. You will be the person that people can't depend on you. Dependability is key when it comes to teams, right? Even if you might not be able to get good at your communication, that you might not be able to take initiatives or try to solve problem, or you think that your role is not central to what the organization is building. Maybe you're doing IT and the organization is something else, like it's not really central to what the organization is doing. I think one place you can invest in is being dependable. When you say you're going to do something, right? Be a dependable person. Be somebody that people can count on. That's what makes you an active member in this team. Be that person that people can count on. That's your journey to becoming a high valued employer. Show up when you say they're going to show up. It helps even you, right? Show up when you're going to show up. Do what you said you're going to do. I've seen people that don't, like, they are promising something, like everybody in the organization already knows they're not going to do that. That's not the right perception you want to live in people's mind. You might be overwhelmed and things like that. Be that person that, okay, if you now say, oh, I cannot do it, people really genuinely understand that you cannot do it. But they know that when you said you're going to do something, you do something. Don't be an over-promiser, always promising things, always talking big and not delivering. People are going to see through you, right? So that's one thing. Be somebody that people can depend on. Your managers can depend on you. If somebody calls upon you, they can depend on you. That's a way to be a high valued employer. So if you have gotten to this place, I've told you 5 things I think you can start doing today to build your reputation as a high valued employer. If you just join an organization, and if you have been in an organization and you're trying to rebrand yourself, right? These are 5 things I think you should do. Start doing. Start learning. Take communication courses, start learning how to communicate, start being a dependable person, right? We've also said something about taking initiative, like taking responsibility. Some people some people deflect from responsibility, and you can't build that reputation if you want to be a high valued employer, right? Take responsibility, right? Take ownership, solve for problems that are high impact. And if you're not solving for high impact problems, frame them as high impact problems. Someone can say, I'm an IT person, I'm just managing website. But if the website is down for 48 hours, that's a serious implication and reputation to the organization, right? So you are, no matter what in the organization, you are solving for high impact problems depending on how you frame it. You frame it by implication. What's the implication of this thing not working, right? And master your core skill. Don't be so good at what every other person is doing, and when it comes to your own skill, you cannot deliver on that. You can't be a high valued employer with that. So now I want to hear from you. Which of these resonates with you? What are you going to start doing now? I'm working on my dependability this year. What are you doing? this year? What are you investing in, and what have you tried out and it didn't work? Right, you tried it one time and like, this is not work for me. And share with me your workplace experience, and let's dive deep into it. Thank you. See you in the next video.